Welcome to the show. I'm Sean Stiers with Scowling Vince DeDario today as we open up another show for you here. Budweiser Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. Why the grim face that you've got over there?
I don't know, man. It's been a day. It has been. I probably started yesterday because we obviously had Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, which was great, and then rolled right into recording upon further review.
Right.
And that was the first time we kind of did it a different way, and there's a lot of good stuff there. But we were recording till about 11 o'clock, so I'm a little beat right now.
Wow. Did you guys go that late? I was wondering how late you went last night.
Yeah, till about 11 o'clock.
You can't, like if the show is live, obviously, I can look and I can jump in and kind of see what you guys are saying.
Sure.
You were recording, though, and I don't like to jump in,
Right.
like the back door of the video thing when other people are, doing it, like do it that way. And that's the only way that I could tell if you were still going or not. So,
yeah. It was,
Whew.
and it was, trying to figure out the new format and doing some different things. And, we got to figure it a different way. I'm too old for this, Sean. Too old for it. That 4 or 6 o'clock, or whatever time it was, alarm came quick,
I bet.
And the kids at school don't care that I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. They do not care at all.
That's right. And, whether you're disciplining high school kids or you're entertaining a city, a nation for that matter, like no one cares.
No one does.
As the guy who was the head coach at the University of Kansas, the head football coach when I was still a student there in the early 90s, Glenn Mason used to say, nobody cares about the labor pains. They just want to see the baby. That's
right.
That's it. That's right. That's right. But I feel for you, like with the lack of sleep. The lack of sleep that I got over the weekend.
Oh, I do.
I didn't even talk about this yesterday because we didn't have time. I'll try to do the condensed version here today. So, flight out of South Bend Saturday morning gets delayed a couple of hours because there were major thunderstorms in Dallas, and I was connecting in Dallas on my way to Miami. So we're delayed by 2 hours. Dallas shuts the entire airport down for like an hour and a half, 2 hours because of these thunderstorms. So we finally get out of South Bend, get into Dallas. Guess what? It's chaos everywhere. They initially wanted to get me to Miami. They wanted to put me on a plane, fly back to Chicago, and then get into Miami like the next morning.
That's crazy.
But by the time they even got into the computer system to book it, it had already been filled. So my only option was to fly into Fort Myers, Florida, instead of Miami to get me like close to Miami. And for those who don't know your Florida geography, Miami is on the Atlantic Ocean side of the peninsula, whereas Fort Myers is on the Gulf side of the peninsula. So that's a 2-hour drive to get from Fort. So we're delayed. I was in the Dallas airport for 8+ hours, I think. We finally get out because we were waiting for a full crew, flight attendants. You have to have at least 2 pilots, the whole thing. Finally landed in Fort Myers, Florida at 4 a.m. Got my car rental because I got there so late that the next day's car rental was already like early morning open. Slept for 4.5-ish hours, kind of off and on. Drove to Miami for the game. Went to the game, did my stuff, post game, and then went straight from there to the airport for a 5:15 a.m. flight back to Dallas in South Bend. So I told you yesterday, that entire weekend, it felt like just one long day because from Saturday morning until really I went to bed Monday night, I got about 6 total hours of sleep. So I'm still feeling a little bit of the side effects. I'm a little bit better today.
Oh, I bet.
Here we are.
I can't even imagine. That's why I was hesitant to even really say anything about my night. But, I mean, I can't even imagine just getting tossed from one end of the country to the other and trying to figure out what the heck is going on and where you're going and where you're driving, where you're staying. Oh, my goodness.
Well, and what made things even crazier is that this was my second time going to what's now Hard Rock Stadium. My first time there was the BCS championship game. And at that time, it was the championship. So I took a media shuttle, so I didn't have to worry
Oh, right.
about driving in and out and all that different kind of stuff. Well, driving in with the rental car, I had a parking pass, a digital parking pass. According to my GPS, it said the parking lot I was supposed to go to was on one side of the stadium. So I try to turn in where it says I'm supposed to turn in, and the guy's like, no, that's on the other side of the stadium. You have to do a
Oh,
U-turn, and there's all this stadium traffic because it's city streets and massive and everything else. And then, of course, when I get over there to the other side, no one actually knows because they're colored lots, and it was the pink lot. No one actually knew where exactly that lot is because it's the media lot. Who cares about the media? So then, you
wow.
finally get to that lot, and then you have to walk from that lot where it's been pouring down rain, by the way, and you're parked in a mud puddle to the other side of the stadium to get the media credentials. They didn't have my credential. They had to go. Yeah. So it's just like one mishap after another. Good times, man.
Wow.
Good times.
That
Yes.
sounds awful. And then you got to sit through that awful game too. So, I mean, it was
Yes.
just double whammy.
Yes. I will say, with all the accommodations, everything else, you definitely appreciate what the Notre Dame, SID, like the way they accommodate the media. I'll put it that way. Much smoother process, from credentials right through, what we get to eat inside the press box.
Yeah. What was the spread? That's always interesting. What was the spread?
It was kind of a chicken, beans, rice, supposed to be a taco thing.
Mm.
And it was one of those, they put it out before the game, and then they didn't put any new food out at halftime. It was just the leftovers, like this kind of condensed version of what was there before the game. So
that sounds awful.
Yeah.
That's awful. Okay.
All right. How about we talk some Notre Dame football? You want to do that?
We might as well. There's still a lot of not very happy people when it talks about
That's what it looks like. This is a mailbag show, and we are answering your questions about Notre Dame football. So if you want to go to the live YouTube at either Irish Breakdown or Sports Radio WSBT, you can go to either one of those YouTube channels and throw your questions into the chat. So I'm going to start off with a Tommy Guns question here.
Nice.
Jadarian Price being benched for the rest of the game compared to Malachi Fields not being benched at all. Fair or foul?
Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. I personally think it's foul, but it's, different rooms, different rule, different expectations and things of that nature. I think it's foul. I think you needed to get Price back on the field ASAP because he was the only one that had any sort of a run game going.
I understand, like every position coach is going to have his own standard because there's a follow-up with this that I'll go ahead and put in here. I just saw it. Let me find it. You want to find it real quick? It's the one about great radio and silence on the radio. Oh, here it is. From Bobby O'Shea. Curious if Sider sat his running backs for the whole game at his previous stops for fumbling the ball, or is this a Marcus Freeman thing? This is typically, and we don't know specifically, this is typically a position, like each position coach has their own standards for things like this. So, like if we're comparing Price to Fields, you've got one position coach coaching the running backs. It's his standard. The wide receivers coach is going to have his standard. For the running backs coach, typically ball security is going to have a much higher standard placed on it and a much more severe, I think, punishment for things like this. We did talk yesterday about the fact that, Dylan McCullough benched Audric Estime. I think it was the Stanford game where he was sent to the bench, for the fumbles. And look, I understand what you're saying. I mean, like looking back in retrospect now, considering Jadarian Price was, until they finally got the offense clicking a little bit in the fourth quarter, the best mode of offense, like his drive where he had the 6 carries for whatever, 40 some yards that it turned out being, that was the most successful Notre Dame offensive drive to that point. But are you going to lower the standard just because you need to get a guy, but back on the field? And there are guys who would say, okay, maybe you get benched for a quarter, so you're going to sit the entire third quarter. Are you ready now? You can go back in the fourth quarter, that kind of thing, So it's just, if that's J1 Sider's standard, you might not like it. And, the result of the game obviously said, probably has people kind of pointing their fingers a little bit. And, like everyone's looking for some kind of reason. But if that's J1 Sider's standard, I get it. It stinks, but I get it. Because I think Bobby also said I would have chewed him out on the sideline and then put him back in. I don't know that chewing somebody out is like, there has to be some kind of consequence, right? Like if you fumble, like you hear coaches say all the time, the bench can be a great teacher, like the bench is a great teacher. And if that is your consequence, you have to pay the consequence sometime. Ball security is a high standard. But I also understand room to room, it's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I understand it. I don't have to like it. You know what I mean? I understand it. I don't have to like it because everybody's like, well, they should have just put, Jeremiah Love in and had him run the ball and everything else. Well, they did give him. They did give him the ball.
Some,
but they're already down 2 touchdowns. You can't just run the ball when you're down 2 touchdowns.
No, but I also felt like early in the second half, even though they did go down by 2 touchdowns, you still have a whole half of football. You're only down by 2 touchdowns. Like I felt like Jeremiah Love, those first couple of drives when they weren't giving him the ball yet, they could have involved him still and tried to get the running game going earlier in the second half, but before some of those other things happen. It's not like you have to start panicking and just throwing the ball all over the place. I felt like they could have involved him more earlier in the second half, and they still didn't do that. They did try to throw him the ball and get him the ball that way. But
yeah, I mean, they tried to get Love involved. It wasn't working, and what was working was Jadarian Price getting the football. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's like you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, and that's fine if that's your standard. I don't know that that's why they lost the game. Right. I'm not going to say that. The best drive that they had for the offensive line was also that drive. So,
I mean, you could argue that Jadarian, there's definitely an argument that either of those running backs should have been handed the ball more earlier to begin with.
Sure.
Or
that's fine.
Price even, and we've talked about that. We'll talk about it a little bit more later when we hear some comments from Marcus Freeman in rapid fire. But, even Jadarian Price, like he could have been out there on the field more than he was before that drive where they started giving him the ball, and he wasn't.
Yeah, we can disagree with the play calls and we can do all of this and all of that. The problem is when you are an RPO based team, they should have had more just runs, just hand the damn ball off. They should have done that more. And they didn't. It was an RPO-based system, and the read told the quarterback to throw the football more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right? So, we can be upset about it, but then that's the offense that they have put together. That's what they believe will help them win games. You know what I mean? Was this RPO-based thing. And so, I feel like they went a little too far with the RPO thing and they just should have handed the ball off more. But I don't think that's obviously not what they did.
That takes us right into a question from Joe Allen in the YouTube chat. Does the offensive game plan change back to the original ground and pound, or is this new RPO the new deal?
The RPO game is the new deal. I mean, I hate to break it to you. That's what Mike Denbrock wants to run, and that's what it's going to be. And especially
not just this year, like in general. Yeah.
That's who he is. That's what he wants to be.
Popular concept.
Right. 100%.
College football and even the NFL. So.
Right. So I don't see that changing. You've got a different quarterback too. You know what I mean? You had to run the ground and pound a little bit more based on the quarterback that you had last year, and I realized that it worked and they did certain things very, very well. But I just don't see that being the case. And again, if anybody watched the game, watching the offensive line did not exactly leave anything to be like, oh man, we should have just been running behind this line the whole time. Well, that wasn't a great showing by them.
Correct. Yeah. I think the main tweak has to be finding a balance of some of the stuff that Marcus Freeman was talking about after the game the other night. You know, at some point you just have to say, okay, we just need to hand the ball to Jay Love here or Jadarian Price, whoever it happens to be. You just need to have more planned runs in there. And again, like with Mike Denbrock having the helmet communication, he can talk to CJ Carr until there's 15 seconds left on the play clock. So that's a lot of time once they get to the line of scrimmage for them to look things over, see what the look looks like. And, you know, it's like, okay, we're doing this just straight up. We're doing this, you know, and maybe this means giving Jeremiah Love the football. But again, like I felt like even the running plays that they did run with those guys, primarily Jeremiah Love, they could have attacked Miami a little bit more on the perimeter with Jeremiah Love with some of those runs.
Sure.
A la the 30-yard run that Jadarian Price had. You know, like it just – now some of that was set up because of the fact that they were doing so many RPOs and, you know, so they're starting to anticipate that that's where they're going to get, but that's part of what you want, you know, like you want them to think one thing and then do another. So I feel like there's a lot of different opportunities out there.
Oh yeah. They left a lot of opportunities. There's that is for sure.
Star Shooter on the Champions Lounge asks, will Joe Rudolph give Will Black an opportunity to compete for the left tackle position this week?
No. He hasn't practiced there all year. Why would he start now?
Yeah.
There's no way.
Training camp, he was a guard. He's not just there. Like, no.
We can all dream and we can all wish upon a falling star, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
He's been practicing at guard since he got to Notre Dame. So that's just not going to happen. I mean,
on top of that, it's just become very obvious that Knapp truly is Joe Rudolph's guy. That's just where it is.
Agreed. It is what it is. It's where we are.
Yep. From Domer Grizz, what changes do you anticipate will actually be made between Miami and Texas A&M? Obviously, no one is getting fired, and they're probably not completely overhauling the offensive lineup. So other than coaching a little harder, what do you think will look different September 13th?
I don't anticipate seeing any kind of lineup changes. I really don't. I mean, based on what I'm hearing from behind the scenes, there's not going to be any changes. The coaching staff is not upset about the play of the offensive line, based on what I've heard, which is mind-boggling. But that's what it is. And at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that make the decision. So I don't think you're going to see any difference. I really don't. I think it's going to be the same 5 guys. I think you'll see a bit of a rotation at guard like you did. I think they're going to have the same plan.
I do too. I don't see a lineup change coming at all. They're going to go with the same guys, and hopefully they're going to coach it a little bit better, and they're going to be more prepared. You know, again, Scott L. Esquire is in here, and he was asking the question last week about it. You know, like, would this Miami game last week be somewhat similar to the opener at Texas A&M? And I agreed with that sentiment from a challenge standpoint of what you're going to face on the offensive and defensive lines. They passed the test better last year with less experienced guys, and that's, again, what is the most disappointing thing about this whole thing. You have 3 guys on this offensive line who started in last year's college football playoff national semifinal, and a center who would have been starting if he hadn't been injured. And so that's where you are. You've got a lot of experience with these guys who have played in big games, but they did not show up Sunday night against Miami. Not consistently anyway.
Right. They need to play better. And I know that sounds simple, but they need to play better. We have, 15, 16 games of film from last year with the same guys, and they never played this poorly. They played poorly as a group on Sunday night. I mean, the 2 tackles played abhorrent football. They never played that poorly all of last year. And now they've got more, seasoning under their belt, and they played awful.
Yeah.
So they got to play better.
They've got more experience and another year of strength and conditioning and the whole thing, technique,
they have to play better.
They should have been a lot better.
Yeah.
I realize that Miami has 5-star guys across the offensive line, but Notre
It
Dame
doesn't
has
matter.
legit dudes across.
Yeah.
Did I say offensive line? Defensive line.
I
I'm
knew what you
talking about
meant.
Miami's defensive line. Notre Dame's offensive line, again, has a bunch of dudes who are highly regarded as well. And
Right.
they shouldn't, at the very least, it should have been more of a stalemate. It shouldn't
Yes.
have been Miami dominating the way they were.
It was a butt whooping. It was a take you
Yeah.
out back to the woodshed butt whooping, and it should not have been that way.
Yeah.
Period.
I'm
It
sorry,
is-
but if Notre Dame's offensive line deserved high grade marks for their play in Sunday night's game, Notre Dame wouldn't have averaged 3 yards a carry. Jeremiah Love and
Exactly.
DeDario Price combined, the best running back room in the nation, wouldn't have averaged just a little over 3 yards per carry if that line had performed to the
Correct.
standard that it was supposed to perform to.
24 drop back, 24 true drop back pass opportunities. They gave up 11 pressures.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's
Yep.
ridiculous. You cannot perform that way and expect to be who you want to be at Notre Dame. You can't do it. And so no matter what metric you use, except for one grading method, but no matter what metric you use, this was not a good performance by the offensive line. And
Not by a long shot.
It's unfortunate that we have to lump in Ashton Craig and Billy Schrouth into this mix, but they're part of the 5-man offensive line. And as a whole, they did not play well. They just didn't.
Yeah.
And they got to fix it. They got to fix it quick. And the answer is not just, pulling guys and changing guys and all of that. Because look, do I think for example, do I think Will Black is a good tackle? I think he can be, right? But the kid hasn't practiced that position since he's been in college.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that to an 18-year-old kid. You just can't do that. And
Well,
so,
look,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if they decided to do that, let's say Joe Rule was like, oh, man, I screwed up. I have him at guard. I need to put him at tackle. We're going to start him at tackle against Texas A&M. You're asking for trouble there, too. You know what I mean? Because he's not going to be prepared the way he needs to be. He should have been practicing at tackle this entire time. Then that's a viable option to bring him in.
Either him or you had an answer at right guard with Sullivan Absher, but you moved Gerby Lambert over there rather than give him looks at left tackle as well. It feels like the left tackle that they currently have, Anthony Knapp, was not challenged in camp. Didn't have to battle to
Correct.
keep that job. Iron sharpens iron and all that kind of stuff. That's how it looks after one game, going up against who he went up against. Again, when you take into consideration all the experience he gained last year, being stronger, all those different factors, the one factor he didn't have during training camp that other guys have had is someone challenging him for the job. And we know Joe Rudolph has done that kind of thing before. That's why Pendleton ended up being the starter last year, right? And that's why Rocco Spindler was not in the starting lineup to start the season. Like, other guys have had that opportunity before to battle and work their way onto the field. Doesn't feel like it happened at the left tackle position. Like someone seriously challenging the incumbent for a job, even though other incumbents last year were challenged for jobs and even lost their job in training camp.
I know, it's wild. I don't understand it. It's like he's trying to protect, the incumbent and not have a challenge. And, that's just what my eyes tell me. And I think that's what your eyes are telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand it. I don't understand having Will Black and Gerby Lambert and Charles Jagasaw all playing inside when those guys are natural tackles. It doesn't make sense.
Like, at least going into the season, we anticipate Jagasaw coming back at some point.
Yes.
So, I think that there's a general feeling that he's going back to right guard, and that may or may not happen. But if that is the case, then why didn't you have one of those other guys, whether it was Black or Lambert, playing more tackle during training camp rather than just guard, to see what, if they could be a viable option, planning for the contingency that Jagasaw does come back? Because as of right now, it's just one game and there's much more. But as of right now, I would rather have Jagasaw out there playing left tackle.
Oh, 100%.
We saw him start there and just have one of those other guys stay at right guard at this point.
Could not agree more. I could not agree more. If we get if we get a repeat performance, at left tackle and right tackle for that matter. Now, I one of the best parts about the offensive line last year was Emil Wagner was very consistent. He wasn't the best, but he was very consistent. He wasn't that on Sunday. So I feel like he's going to be able to bring up his play. I hope Anthony Knapp can bring up his play because I don't think he's changing. But I agree with you. If he can't pick it up, if we get a repeat performance, there has to be changes. There has to be.
Yeah.
But it'll all be masked because these are the two tough games. And now you're going to get into situations where it's not that hard.
Part of the schedule, you expect them to start playing better.
Yep.
Yep, exactly. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we've got more Notre Dame football questions from the YouTube chat today. And if you're listening on the radio and you find yourself at home, or maybe you just pull over and pull it up on your phone, you can go to the Average Breakdown channel or the Sports Radio WSBT channel and ask a question of your own. You can always get them in there. We'll do that more when we return right after this. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. I'm Sean Stiers, joined by the one and only Vince DeDario today. Looking chill, looking good over there. He's not got that scowl on his face now that he started off with today. He's on a roll right now.
Yeah, baby.
We are answering Notre Dame football questions, Notre Dame mailbag questions today in the YouTube chat from the Irish Breakdown and Sports Radio WSBT YouTube chats. And I just had one ready to go. What happened for it? Andy Forever 72 had heard Marcus Freeman was not happy about the amount of zone coverage and no pressures. Chances he steps in and tells Ash enough on that.
I'm curious as to where that was heard. All the sound bites I heard from the press conference was that he wasn't even all that upset about certain things. So I don't know where that information is coming
Maybe
from.
going back and looking on film has stirred something up.
Yeah, but like, who's reporting that though? You know what I mean? Like, where is that come from? Now, look, going back and watching the film, yeah, I was pretty upset about it too. But I don't have a direct line to Chris Ash, so they don't let me talk to him. But
I just kept watching the whole game, and it's like what is up with all this soft coverage? What is going on here? This is not Notre Dame.
That's exactly the problem, and hopefully that is taken into account. But I mean, if it happened in game one, it was happening all of camp and all of prep, and that was the game plan. Marcus Freeman had to approve it. End of discussion, in my opinion. So, if it was a problem, if it was, Marcus Freeman didn't just show up on Sunday night and was like, okay, guys, go do your thing. Like, I have no idea what's about to happen. Like, he knew the game plan. So
yeah,
it's kind of a look in the mirror moment too.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like that was an easy adjustment though, when they were having issues with it the way they were, and Miami was able to have the success that they had. It's like they're always talking about, we got there at halftime and we made these adjustments. It felt like after a quarter, it's like, what's working and what's not working, but especially when you get hit with another touchdown there at the end of the first half, it's like, okay, feels like we need to let our guys be our guys, specific to the secondary. I said, like, there was no wide receiver for Miami that should have put a scare into Notre Dame and made them feel like they had to play zone the way they did. Just like straight up man coverage, let them be physical, let them do their thing.
Yeah.
That, like, it just wasn't a good night. That's a big adjustment that they need to make though. And that's NH says, what are 3 changes you expect to see made with the team in the next game? I would say that is one of them.
Yes.
Like the approach to the coverage, that is at the top of the list for me.
I think because that's an easy change. Like that's not a personnel change. That's and not even really a scheme change. It's not like they don't have that in their playbook. You know what I mean? Like, because we saw it plenty on Sunday night. So they have it. They just need to inject the aggressiveness back into the defense. I hope they haven't just beat it out of them, throughout camp like that. That's what this game was missing, was the aggressive nature of the defense that we had come to know and love. They need that back.
Because when you're playing more zone, especially when these guys played so much man-to-man last year, and traditionally they played so much man-to-man under Al Golden, when you're doing that and now you're playing more zone, there's a little bit more unease. There's a little bit more uncertainty, and there's a little more thinking involved when you're doing that, rather than just, again, just straight up be aggressive, man up on somebody, cover them and deny them the football. There's just more of that when you're playing zone coverage, and it obviously didn't work out very well. And the pressure has to be a thing too. Like, they've got to find a way to get more pressure on the opposing quarterback. Now, next week's quarterback, Texas A&M, Marcel Reed, is going to be a different kind of challenge because he's a more mobile kind of guy. And so, like, even getting pressure can work against you sometimes because of that. Think Riley Leonard.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. And they have a different type of test, when they play A&M, you know what I mean? And so it'll be interesting to see how they handle it and things of that nature. But I still think they need to have the aggressiveness back. They cannot play Bob Diaco shell defense and expect to be successful. That's just not going to happen. Not with this group. You know what I mean? It's just not who this group is.
No, exactly. And I think the other change is the passing game has to be more downfield. Like you can't, and I think that it will be, but
I think it will be too.
you can't go into that game, after what you showed against Miami and just go out there and start throwing screen passes again. I think CJ Carr showed that he can be trusted.
Yeah.
It's still about the kind of like the biggest question, especially like when you look at a guy like Jaden Greathouse, who was not involved, a whole lot in the offense. Well, from that slot, a big part of his game is stuff in the middle of the field. And they were obviously trying to avoid throwing to the middle of the field. So like how much can you tweak around that if you want to get a guy like Greathouse more involved again?
Great question. They need to get Greathouse more involved, that's for sure, because he was not feeling on Sunday. Like he was not feeling it. He did not have a great game.
Blake says Notre Dame needs a spy next week. I think Snead or KVA could be great this week in a spy role. I disagree with
I hate a spy. Hate it.
Yeah. And if you're going to do it, it's not going to be the same guy all the time. Like it's more assignments on the edges in terms of the defensive ends and the way the pass rush operates. I don't think, they might put a spy from time to time on Reed. I don't think it's going to be the same. You want to switch it up as much as possible so he doesn't know who the guy is looking in on him. But you, as you said, you don't like the spy concept at all.
I don't. If you just play sound defense, you don't need a spy. I feel like you're taking a guy off of your defense basically by having him be a spy.
Yeah.
I don't like that. If you play sound defense, you don't need a spy. You can have one every now and again, if you're talking about, I don't know, a 3rd and long situation, you don't want him to leak out, okay, fine. But that is not a staple of a defense that I would want to have.
It's more keep him in the pocket, keep him contained with your, with your defense and make him have to beat you with his arm. I think that's much more than
keep him in the pocket.
Yeah.
Keep him in the pocket. You can do it without a spy. Like I said, I feel like that's taking a man off the field.
Cam asks, any opinion on Jeremiah Love having a wildcat package? I feel in any short yardage situation, a direct snap with him would be as effective as Riley was last year, if not more.
It's something that you could look at. That's fine. Are you taking CJ Carr off the field? Because if you don't, now you're playing with 10 offensive men. That's the one thing I don't like about Wildcat, right? Like you kind of have to guard them, but then not really when the quarterback splits out wide. The one thing I don't like about a Wildcat situation is it does take away any kind of a passing option that you even have. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. At least when you had Riley Leonard doing it, you did have a passing option, even though the entire stadium knew he was probably carrying the football. And I get all of that. I'm just not a fan of the Wildcat. You're playing offense with 10 guys. And so the adage,
you take away, any possibility of a passing play being in there if you're just direct. And again, it's a package. It's not a mode of operation, okay, maybe it's a short yardage. You direct snap the ball to Jeremiah Love, something like that. But it's if they did it, I could see it red zone or, and/or short yardage type stuff. That's it.
Right. And the answer is not to go to a different quarterback, by the way. That's not the answer. No matter who it is.
Just to clarify,
that's not the answer.
From the Champions Lounge from Domer Grizz, there's a post on the board calling out the captains for their poor play. How common is it for the additional responsibilities and maybe extra pressure of being a captain to negatively affect one's play on the field? Captains aren't necessarily chosen because they're the best players, but against Miami, it's fair to say each underperformed. Do you expect that to continue, or will they get back to playing like themselves now that they've gotten the captain jitters out of their system? Thoughts on this?
I don't think captaincy had anything to do with the way that they played. I mean, the extra added responsibilities, you have one extra meeting a week, and you are, they put the C on the chest, but they've always been leaders. Like, that's the whole point of being named a captain, is that they've shown leadership capabilities. So you don't really change anything. I don't think being a captain made them play poorly. I don't think it was captain jitters or
I don't either.
anything like
And I
that.
don't think that, like other guys see the captains playing poorly. So now, you're playing
Right.
poorly. Like, I don't think that one has to do with the other. Like a high majority of the team had a bad night.
Right. Sometimes you just play poorly.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation for it. It's a sporting event. Like Joe Montana had bad days. You know what I mean? Like you'll pick your favorite player. They've had bad days. And sometimes there's no explanation for it. It just, unfortunately, a vast majority of Notre Dame's team decided on the same day that they were going to have a bad day.
So we were talking about the quarterbacks, and Lucky says, what about Buckner? And let me just say this. Tyler Buckner is not starting a game at quarterback this year for Notre Dame unless they're, and I don't even want to speak it into existence. Tyler Buckner is there to be the emergency number 3 quarterback because he has experience. They're not going to Tyler, but they're not going to make a decision to start Tyler Buckner over either Minchie or Carr this season. Starting him over either one of those two is not going to happen. So I hope we don't keep getting Buckner questions all year long. And look,
he's the third string quarterback.
As we talked about yesterday, CJ Carr was not the problem.
No, not at all. He was the bright spot.
Yes.
Quarterback is not the problem at all. At all.
Let's take another break. We'll come back. Some more mailbag questions when we continue Notre Dame football on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues with Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stiers. It's Notre Dame football mailbag day, and we are answering questions from the YouTube chat, live YouTube streams of our show from Irish Breakdown and Sports Radio WSBT. People surly today, Vince. People are surly. You're muted.
Of course they are, because they have all the answers, and they want us to have all the answers. And it's been 3 days. Like there's a few more days to go before we get to see this product back on the field again. And it's making everybody antsy.
Yes, indeed it is. Josh asks, do we think Notre Dame beat Notre Dame more than Miami beating them?
Well, I think that's a little bit disrespectful towards Miami, to be perfectly honest with you. Look, now, Miami didn't play the perfect game. There were opportunities that Notre Dame had to win this game despite how poorly they played. So there's an argument to be made that Notre Dame beat themselves. But I don't really want to take anything away from Miami because they made the plays when they needed to win the game. So to a degree, Josh, I don't disagree with you, but I'm not going to take away from Miami because they made the plays when they had to make them to win the game.
And look, I felt like, again, like from a talent standpoint, I would put Notre Dame's secondary up against Miami's wide receivers. And as we've said time and again, that means I would have played a heck of a lot more man-to-man than all the off coverage that we saw with the zone stuff that they were rolling out there the other night. Like that one simple thing, now that's not the players beating themselves. That is a game plan issue. And people, we've seen some of the questions in here. Is it a game plan issue? Is it a player issue? It's a little bit of both. But in terms of this question specifically, Notre Dame beating Notre Dame meeting more than Miami beating them, you do have to get credit. As Lou Holtz used to say, those other guys get scholarships too.
Right.
And they had a lot of five-star guys out there themselves. They won a close game. There was only one turnover that ultimately resulted in points, and that was only 3 points. Now you can say, okay, it was a 3-point game. Well, I feel like if Notre Dame's defense had played to its capability, like I said going in, I didn't think Miami was going to be able to score more than 17 points, but I would give them a 3-point allowance to 20. They ended up scoring 27. Like Notre Dame's defense plays up to its capability. Again, I feel like they win that game, but Miami had the more experienced quarterback and he made plays and he got some help, a couple plays from some receivers when he needed it as well. They made a few more plays than Notre Dame made at the end of the day.
Yeah, and nothing that Miami did was spectacular offensively. I mean, they won in the trenches, like we said. But when you break down what Carson Beck did, he threw 2 passes over 10 yards, 2, and they were both touchdowns.
Yeah,
I mean, one was a prayer that was answered by C.J. Daniels, and the other one was a nice play where he maneuvered in the pocket and found a guy wide open because Notre Dame's safety went the wrong direction. So, they took advantage of Notre Dame's mistakes. That's what good teams do, right? No Miami person is going to say that Miami played the perfect football game because they didn't at all. I would love an opportunity to play Miami again at some point if you're Notre Dame. I would love it.
Absolutely.
But the team has to play better. The play calling has to be better. The whole team effort has to be better if they want to win that game. Again, Miami didn't do anything special. They took what Notre Dame gave them and scored enough points and had the ball last pretty much. I mean, they didn't have it last. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they did what they needed to do.
Yeah. They might as well have had it last, just because of the way that it worked out. Yeah. Right. Blake wants to know if Notre Dame doesn't throw the pick late in the game, not trashing CJ Carr, he says, just a bad play. Do you have faith Notre Dame wins that game?
I have faith that if Notre Dame would have stopped Miami on that field goal drive at the end of the game, I feel like Notre Dame wins that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the interception really. I mean, it was a 3-point turnover. They had 2 turnovers. The problem was they lost the turnover battle, and they got lucky that the field goal was botched the first time.
Yes.
And then the second time they hit the field goal. They only got 3 points off of two turnovers. That's pretty darn good, really, if you think about it.
Right.
So that wasn't yes, it was technically the difference in the game because they won by 3. I get it. But I put more onus on the last drive and just preventing Miami from kicking that last field
Yeah.
goal.
And I mean, other than that, felt like Notre Dame had stolen some momentum back. They definitely stole some momentum back because they were able to tie the game up prior to that after being down by 10 points after that field goal. Carr, after the interception, leads them on 2 scoring drives. Notre Dame sucked the momentum back, but again, Miami was able to go down. I texted you and Jesse. I felt like if they could have made that just a little farther, with Onye and Bryce Young sitting in the middle of that line, like, if you make that kicker have to have a little bit lower trajectory because the field goal is a little bit longer, maybe they have a chance to get a piece of it. And it looked like from where I was sitting, one of them, was close but didn't quite get his hand on it, and they were able to make the kick.
Yeah, I mean, look, Notre Dame struggled defensively on 3rd and longs. Like Miami converted 3rd and long, I don't know how many times. Notre Dame did much better on 3rd and short, believe it or not. It was like a complete paradox of the way things are supposed to go. But they ran some concepts, some underneath concepts, and they took advantage of the soft coverage, and they beat Notre Dame in 3rd and long way too many times on Sunday night. And that happened a decent chunk on that last drive too. So that's the thing you circle and you figure out. Like they were just not aggressive defensively to try to get the ball back. They just weren't. And that's disappointing.
Yeah. Luke asks, are we understating the loss of Xavier Watts to this defense? Stroman played well, but it feels like we dropped a level. There's obviously going to be some drop when you're talking about a guy who won the Nagurski Award 2 years ago and was an All-American the last 2 years and is playing in the NFL right now. Adon Schuler, would he like to have that CJ Daniels touchdown grab back? Of course he would. He would have played that a little bit differently, being able to look at that now. But again, I still just feel like the way they were playing defensively just really limited what Notre Dame's secondary was ultimately able to do. And I think that Adon Schuler over the course of the entire season, again, is he going to play at Xavier Watts level? Probably not this early. Maybe he gets there close to it by the end of the season, but I feel like Schuler is going to make more plays than he doesn't make, over the course of an entire season.
Look, are they missing the loss of an All-American in the defensive backfield? Yeah, of course they are. He was a mainstay back there for 2 years. He was the leader of that defensive secondary, which was elite the last couple years. So yes, they are missing the absence of Xavier Watts. No doubt about it. And no one is understating it. I don't okay, does Xavier Watts pick that ball off, that ends up being a touchdown? Well, that wasn't his position. That's not where he was. That's not, you know what I mean? Like that's just not his, that wasn't his call to make. And so would things have been different? Possibly. He's a ball hawk. Maybe there's another ball that he picks off or something like that. But again, Miami didn't put the ball down the field. There were not a lot of opportunities to intercept the football. There was one opportunity to intercept the football, in my opinion, and it ended up being a touchdown for Miami on an amazing catch.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's true. Yep.
Everything else was underneath. It was dink and dunk.
Exactly. Like you said, Carson Beck really didn't throw the ball downfield, but those 2 times, and they both turned into touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, yep. Okay, we'll wrap it up, the mailbag portion of the show with that. We've got some questions queued up still. We may have time to get back to them. There's been some rain around South Bend, so we're going to do rapid fire in the second hour of the show. And we're supposed to give it over to South Bend Cubs, Brendan King and Tyler over there at Four Winds Field. We usually, get out at 6:40. But if we're in rain delay, we will have some rain delay programming, and that means we'll have the chance to
just keep going.
Extra questions at the end of the show. So we'll do that if we have time after rapid fire at the end. A lot of good questions tonight about a lot of good topics, I guess, not a lot of good stuff. Rapid fire hour 2 is coming up next. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It is hour number 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com, and that can mean only one thing, Vince. It's rapid fire time.
Let's go.
All
Let's
right.
go, baby. Got to work that mute button a little better.
I was going to say, Vince got the mute button off just in time.
Yeah.
So Marcus Freeman and Kalen DeBoer were both top 10 coaches who lost their season openers on the road last weekend. Which of them should be feeling better today?
It's Marcus Freeman. And it's because of the way the team played, right? Now, look, we have all of our issues with the way Notre Dame played and all of those different things. And I can't believe that we're having a conversation about whether essentially professional athletes quit in a game. But Notre Dame didn't quit. Like, Notre Dame played
Correct.
to the end of that game. Alabama quit. Like that they got run out of the building by Florida State, and that was embarrassing. So Kalen DeBoer has a much bigger challenge ahead of him. Look, Marcus Freeman has a challenge ahead of him. Don't get me wrong. There are issues. There's coyotes in the hen house or whatever you want, whatever analogy you want to use. There's issues Marcus Freeman has to deal with. They are not the same issues that Kalen DeBoer has to deal with.
No, I mean, Alabama just got pushed all over the place. 230 rushing yards Florida State had. They ran it down their throat, and Alabama only had 87 rushing yards of their own. Alabama's supposed to be this big, rough and tumble, physical SEC team, and look what it got them. It's crazy, though. Like, when you think about the trajectory of Florida State football over the last 2+ seasons now, to be 13-0, not get into the college football playoff, to fall off, be the worst Power 4 team in the nation last year, and then you come right out of the gate with a revamped roster, and you just beat down Alabama like that. Look, I've said it time and again that I didn't think Alabama was going to be that great this year. You know, Feinbaum was all over him, saying that Alabama was the team being disrespected, and look what happened to them, you know, right away. They got beaten, and they got beaten soundly by a Florida State team that was awful last year. But, you know, again, shows what the transfer portal can do. But I think you also have to look at Kalen DeBoer, and you know, for all the success that he had, that last year in Washington, maybe you've got Michael Penix to thank a little bit for that. He had a generational quarterback out there. So it's definitely Kalen DeBoer. Marcus Freeman's got things to fix. Kalen DeBoer has got a lot of people breathing down his neck now already. I think that seat got uncomfortably warm very quickly down there in Tuscaloosa.
I mean, they got to go on the road to Georgia. They have to host Tennessee. They got to play South Carolina. You know, they've got to play LSU. They got to play Oklahoma. They're in trouble. I mean, unless they fix some things severely, they are in trouble.
Yeah,
just too many ranked matchups there. Just not a whole lot of weeks off for Alabama, except for this coming week when they have Bethune-Cookman or whatever they've got coming.
That's right.
No, I'm sorry. Louisiana Monroe. Excuse me. My fault.
Very, very, very big distinction there.
Yes, my fault.
Big distinction. Okay, so we're going to hear some comments from Marcus Freeman from after the Miami game that we weren't able to get to on yesterday's show. You know, as we've kind of talked about in the first hour, Jeremiah Love had 10 carries for 33 yards against the Hurricanes, while Jadarian Price had 6 carries for 45 yards rather. Here is Marcus Freeman on why they weren't more committed to the run.
You know, we had our plan going into the game. The problem with some of our easy throws, we weren't getting enough to get a first down, and we had a couple three and outs, and you know, I think at halftime we got together and said, okay, we had a plan to get J Love in the pass game and some of those situations, and they did a good job. They did a good job covering them and doing those things, but you know, we made a intentional effort at halftime to say, okay, let's either take away some of those reads or find intentional ways to get the ball in his hands, and he made some good things happen.
All right, so there's Marcus Freeman on the lack of Love and Price. So what do you think the workload needs to look like, Vince, for these guys, Love and Price, going forward?
It's so hard to say because every game kind of presents some different realities, you know.
True.
They combined for what, 16 carries, I think, on Sunday.
Yes. 16 carries, 78 total yards between them.
Yeah. I mean, look, I would say probably 25 total carries between the two of them, depending on, and I don't even care who has the most. Depends on who the hot hand is. That's honestly how I feel. Yes, Jeremiah Love is considered one of the best running backs in the country, but you got to ride the hot hand. You can't worry about that kind of stuff. On Sunday night, my opinion, Jadarian Price was the hot hand, and we had this discussion, so I'm not going to go into it anymore, but he only had 6 carries. That's not enough. Jeremiah Love had 10. That's not enough. So I think about 25 is maybe the golden number. 25 total between them? Yes, carries. So you're not talking about – I'm not talking about passes. Touches. Yeah, I'm talking about carries, like legitimate carries. Yeah, it feels, because – as you said, each game presents itself its own different challenge and its own different game plan, depending upon who you're playing. And, so like just to put a flat number on it, like I think 25 is probably a good number, but, like in terms of carries between the two of them, because I think if you're at 25, then, like if one's not effective, the other is, hitting. Just like Jadarian Price showed the other day with the 30-yard run, like he can be a threat as well to take it nearly the distance on any given play. And that's why that's a big part of what you like. You control the game with those guys. I think between 25 and 30 total carries is what it needs to be. But, the other aspect of this is you can be a little bit more creative in terms of getting the ball in Love's hands with the pass game as well. They tried a little bit the other night, but, it's like you can throw beyond the line of scrimmage. I think that's a big part of this as well, is I think maybe they figured out, okay, we can trust CJ Carr maybe a little bit more than we thought we could. We can get downfield. This doesn't all have to be out here on the perimeter. Agreed. Yeah. I mean, the pass game needs to be a little bit more dynamic, which will help open up the run game. I mean, Miami did a good job of just pinning their ears back and taking away a lot of the screen stuff and the short stuff. They did a good job of that. Mm-hmm. Well, you have to combat that with some throws down the field. That's the way that you do that. You know what I mean? And they had some success. The throw to Malachi Fields, right? It was a broken play to Eli Raridan, yes, but all those routes were downfield. Yeah. Every route was downfield. It's just there was a missed coverage and he hit the guy, right? So they needed more of that earlier than they did. And then that opens up the run game, and then you can hand off the ball and you can do different things. And, there's ideal percentages and things like that, but you also have to go with the flow of the game and kind of how it kind of sets up. They were very conservative with CJ Carr, and they didn't need to be. And I think he proved that in this game. Yeah, exactly. So they rotated Gerby Lambert and Sullivan Absher at right guard during the game against the Miami Hurricanes. Freeman touched on that. We think it was at that moment good for Sully to go in the game. We kind of had that planned, and then after Sully got a couple series, we decided to put Gerby back in the game. Gerby's, both of them played well. We said it was competition. We said we could see both. You don't often see, linemen rotate, but we thought it was a situation that in that certain situation of the game that we planned on getting Sully in, and then we got Gerby back in there in those last 2 series. So what did you think, Vince, of the rotation of the guards? It didn't feel like a rotation. It felt like one guy was starting and the hook was very short, and they brought in the other guy, and then they decided they wanted to go back to the first guy. Like, that's what it didn't feel like a contrived, like, okay, you're going to get series 1, 2, and 3, and then you're going to get series 4 and 5. It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like, okay, we're going to go into this game. We're probably going to get both of these guys some reps. We'll feel it. We'll know when it needs to happen, and then we'll get the other guy in, and then they quickly went back to the first guy. And that, I don't know. It just felt odd to me. I think so as well. There were 60 total offensive snaps in that game. Strouth, Craig, and Wagner played all 60. Of course, Knapp had to come out because of the cramps that he had. But so of the 60 snaps,
Gerby Lambert played 33. Sullivan Absher played 27. So it wasn't quite 50-50, but it was closer
It's more than
I
thought.
realized.
It's closer than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, like, why that position are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like, is it just because you felt like the competition was that close? Is it because Absher felt like the guy coming into camp, but Gerby Lambert was able to overtake him? I don't understand why that position specifically. And did they gain anything out of it? Didn't feel like it to me.
I don't think they gained anything out of it. I think that the competition was close enough that that's why they did it. And there was other positions where they played more than one guy. It's just more obvious on the offensive line. You know what I mean? And so I think that's probably what it was. I think it was a close competition. And I don't know if it was close for the right reasons, but it was close. And so they figured they'll play both guys. They needed to worry about other offensive line positions.
No, and I mean, as people, Carlos is saying here in the YouTube chat, need to rotate someone in for Knapp, but
no, they did eventually when Knapp went down with cramps.
Yeah, but that wasn't a rotation though.
It was not a rotation. It was an injury substitution, according to Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, I think if you ask some people over there, they don't see any problem with the way Knapp played. And that's part of the problem.
That's the biggest problem, frankly. Like you can't blame. Look, this is how I feel. You can't blame the player for not playing well in a position that I don't think he was suited for. That's coaching. That's coaching. And if you're not going to get coached up, if you're not going to get told you're doing something wrong, if you're just going to get patted on the back and told everything's rainbows and sunshine, then why would you change anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hard to disagree with that.
There has to be an adult in the room, Sean.
Someone's got to be.
Someone has to be.
So they also only sacked Carson Beck once and had one quarterback pressure. Here is Marcus Freeman on the lack of pressure on Carson Beck.
We're protecting. We gotta be better with our 4-man rushes. You know, if we need to blitz 5, we will, but you're not going to be really successful on defense if you can't get pressure on the quarterback with 4-man rushes. And I felt like they did a good job protecting the quarterback. I think there was times where Beck had enough time to really figure out what coverage we were playing and put the ball where it needed to be put. You know, we got a little bit better pressure maybe in the end of the third, fourth quarter, but the expectation is throughout those 4 quarters you've got to be able to get 4-man pressure, rolling guys in there and create some pressure on the quarterback.
Now, look, some of it is Miami's mode of operation with that air raid offense, and we talked about this.
Quick release.
We had the guy from Miami on, like they wanted to get it out quickly, and that's what they did, and that can negate some of the pass rush. That said, there were other times when Carson Beck had ample time to just stand in the pocket, you know, like the 2 touchdown passes as an example. Both of those passes were near the end zone when it happened. So I don't know, Vince, there were some blitzes, but do they just flat out need to bring more heat going forward?
Yes, because what Marcus Freeman said, you have to get pressure with 4 and they weren't. So you have to adjust. And I never saw them adjust.
Got to make the quarterback uncomfortable somehow.
Especially somebody like Carson Beck, who's going to make mistakes. And he did. That's the thing. When he got pressured, he made mistakes. That touchdown pass was a mistake. No matter what anybody wants to tell you.
Yeah, he threw it high and he got bailed out by a receiver making a spectacular play.
He threw it high over the middle of the field. Like that is quarterback 101. You don't do that.
It's what Drew Aller did.
Like,
But why did Drew Aller do it? Because he had pressure in his face.
And Drew Aller throws an interception and somehow Carson Beck throws a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like that's just dumb luck right there. I mean, the kid made a great play. Notre Dame didn't, but he got pressured. He threw mistakes. Like that's what he does. He didn't do it enough, and it cost him.
We've got a super chat in the YouTube chat from Josh Stansberry. We appreciate the super chat, Josh. If Al Golden is still the defensive coordinator, do we win the Miami game? I asked knowing the defense wasn't the biggest issue. O-line, he says. Your answer to this, Vince, is?
Yeah. Yes, they win the game because they only lost by 3 points. They only lost by 3 points. I don't think Miami scores 27 if Al Golden is the defensive coordinator. I don't.
You didn't
So,
trust your elite secondary against average receivers, and that's
yeah.
what those receivers were, average. Notre Dame's secondary across the board, especially the corners, lockdown elite. You didn't trust them, and that's what the game came down to in terms of the passing game. And like Al Golden would have found a way to get pressure on Carson Beck. We were just talking about it. So the answer is yes, but the unfortunate answer is also Al Golden's not here, so that's irrelevant at this point.
Well, it's like saying, do you miss, Xavier Watts? Do you miss Riley Leonard? Do you know? Yeah. Yes. Did the 49ers miss Deion Sanders when he went to the Cowboys? Yeah, they did. You know what I mean? Like, yes, those are all yes questions, but that's not the reality that we're living in. And so they got to figure it out. They have to figure it out. And if it takes Marcus Freeman to step in, then Marcus Freeman needs to step in. But they didn't go into this game blind. Like, he knew what the game plan was. He knew they were going to run zone. He knew they were going to run off coverage.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did watch the defense during practice.
If he wants to put his finger on the thumb, put his thumb on the scale, now is the time to do it, because you have 11 games going forward, and you just, if you don't want that much zone, like you play zone when you feel like your guys need a little bit of help because of the kind of, Jeremiah Smith is the example. What did we hear going into the national championship game last year? Ohio State performs better. Their receivers produce more against man coverage because, look at all the NFL receivers Ohio State cranks out year after year. Jeremiah Smith is one of them. Emeka Egbuka was obviously one of them. He's in the NFL right now. That's why you needed a change of pace to be able to play more zone against a team like Ohio State. You didn't need that against Miami, because you shouldn't feel like your secondary was inferior in any way to the wide receivers that Miami had out there. CJ Daniels made a great catch, but what did he do otherwise throughout the night? The freshman Malachi Toney, a nice receiver. He's a true freshman. He's got some talent, but I just feel like if you man up on him more with Devontae Smith, he's not making those plays, and he's not having that kind of game that he ultimately had for Miami against Notre Dame. If you trusted your guys more, it just didn't look like Ash trusted his guys against Miami, but there was no reason not to, in my opinion.
The answer to your question about CJ Daniels, he had 5 catches for 46 yards, and the touchdown was a 20-yarder. So that means he had 4 catches for 26 yards.
Other than the touchdown.
Other than the catch for a touchdown.
Correct.
So the answer is he didn't do much.
There you go.
Not much at all.
We're going to take a timeout. We've got more rapid fire coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. We've got about 12 minutes to go here on the show. Up, there we are. Our faces are back on the YouTube stream. Sounded like the weather has, at least cooperated to some extent over there at Four Winds Field. So sounded like Brendan and Tyler are going to have South Bend Cubs baseball coming up here in just a few minutes, starting their pregame show. We're doing a rapid fire right now. Fill in the blank, Vince. College football teams provide a 2-deep depth chart flip card for the media in the press box at every game. It's blank that at North Carolina on Monday night, Bill Belichick's Tar Heel depth chart simply listed every position group, but had no players listed on the 2-deep.
Emblematic of the way they played, because they were pretty much a no-show. It's so silly. Like, that's so dumb. Like, the media that follows North Carolina knew who was starting. You know what I mean? Like, what are you accomplishing by not releasing a depth chart to the press box? You're just making everybody's job harder.
Right.
Like, that's not a benefit to you in the game. That's not a competitive advantage. Yes. You're just making the job of all those people that get paid to cover your team that much harder.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It is childish. Like, you are allegedly, if you're Bill Belichick, allegedly the greatest coach of all time, or at least, many consider you the greatest professional NFL coach of all time. With all the Super Bowls that you've won. You have to show something in college. Why are you doing this? It just makes you look so small by doing it. Like, even smaller than the whipping that your team took out on the field, because to some extent that can be excused because of transfer portal and first season and putting together a team and all that different stuff. But, like, what are you accomplishing by hiding this information from the media in the press box? Because, like you said, this is like game day in the press box. Who are you hiding it from at that point?
Exactly.
Here's the Miami flip card, by the way.
Oh,
I'm holding it up.
Look at you.
I'm holding it up like in front of the YouTube camera right now. I can't see exactly what's being shown because I'm holding it in front of the camera.
That's a big one. That's actually a big one.
They actually, like Miami, they listed 4 quarterbacks. They listed 5 running backs. They're like 3 and 4 deep at at all these different position groups. Notre Dame, released a 3-deep depth chart for us in the media notes last week. And it was basically a 2-deep that Miami had on the flip card. But, this is what grown-up coaches do. They release this information because it's good for the people who are actually trying to cover your team and, write or talk succinctly about your team and accurately about your team as the game is going on and afterwards. It's ridiculous that Bill Belichick, at 70, however many years old he is, and all the years of coaching that he's had, feels like he has to keep stooping to this kind of stupidity.
Like, I get it if you don't want to release the depth chart, at the beginning of camp or, those kinds of things. I still think it's silly, but at least you could look at that as a slight competitive advantage. But the day of a game, like, hay's in the barn, baby. Like, nothing's going to change. I don't get it. It's silly.
Either. All right, we got a few questions we can finish up with here from the YouTube chat, from the mailbag that we didn't get to in the first hour of the show. Tommy Guns, panic level about the offensive line on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the teenager in a slasher movie opening scene. What is your panic level?
You're the red shirt in a Star Trek episode.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
That. Good, more age appropriate there.
Yeah.
Look, my panic level is maybe a 6.5 right now, and that might be a little high. I don't know. I just don't think anything's going to change, but I think the players are going to play better. I don't see them repeating this performance 2 games in a row. I just don't see how that, even if we say that they're playing out of position, we say that the coaching isn't good, all of those things, all are true. I just don't see how they play that poorly 2 weeks in a row. They're too talented of football players,
right,
to play that poorly 2 weeks in a row.
And you said it earlier, like, Texas A&M will still be a challenge because they're going to have big SEC type bodies up on, the defensive line that they're going to have to go against. But as this season continues on, the kind of players that they're going to face, with Purdue and Arkansas and NC, like go on down the line, they're just not going to be the same level as what they saw last week. So they're it'll get better. So my panic level is maybe a 5. Again, like there's some things that need to be fixed, but I just think because of who they're going to play, it's going to look better as this season goes on.
Yeah, me too. They're just, like you said, there's just too much talent in the room for them to play that bad every single week.
Yeah, exactly. Sean Kelly asks, Chris Ash preached this is Notre Dame's defense he is going to run. Well, we didn't see that this weekend. Do you think Marcus Freeman forces him to change things up a bit before Texas A&M?
I don't think that Marcus Freeman is going to impose his will on Chris Ash. That's not really his style. I don't necessarily see that happening. Again, Marcus Freeman did not go into this game blind to what the game plan was defensively. He knew what it was going to be. He knew there was going to be zone. He knew there was going to be off coverage, and he was okay with it because that's what they did. So I just don't. Maybe there's going to be some discussion. Maybe there's going to be some conversation, but I just don't see Marcus Freeman going to Chris Ash's office and just pounding his fist on the table to make changes. I just don't.
I don't either. I don't think and let's. I think that there will be some adjustments. You would hope that they, again, you would hope that they see. Okay, maybe we didn't need to play it quite as much as what we did. Maybe we need to let these guys play. You would think that there will be some conversation as they go back and look at film, and you always expect that the head coach is going to have some input to all of his coordinators and coaches about a lot of different things. So, again, like you said, does he go in and pound his table and Chris Ash, this is, why we do this? We need to do. He was aware of what the game plan was.
Right.
Now it's a matter of realizing what was a mistake, what you need to keep, and making the tweaks going forward. Josh is asking if Rudolph is still part of the program after this season. I know it's early to say, but what about Ash? In both cases, look, it's one game. There's a lot of football that has to be played this year before anyone is going to go to those kind of extremes to make any changes.
Yeah, I mean,
and I would say, and I've said this before, Marcus Freeman's lone season as defensive coordinator, remember the season opener against Florida State, with all the explosive plays that Florida State made in that game. Now, Notre Dame obviously ended up winning that game very close on the road. Remember all the Marcus Freeman actually had a much more unsettling start to his tenure as defensive coordinator than what Ash had the other night in terms of giving up big plays.
I agree with that completely. Remember, he went and apologized to the defense. Like it was bad enough that Marcus Freeman apologized to his defense, said it was his fault, and it won't happen again. Right? I don't know if Chris Ash is apologizing or if he even really needs to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, it's a different scenario. Look, there's more. There's more to judge with Rudolph. He's been on the staff longer than Ash has. And unless Ash he gave up 27 points, right? He gave up 119 yards on the ground. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
He gave up 220 yards passing, was it? 205. So it's 324 total yards of offense.
And the most explosive plays were the 2 touchdowns.
Right. It's not great, but it's also not horrible. It's not a fireable offense. Now, if they start giving up 500 yards a game on average, for the rest of the season, let's have that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Ash's biggest crime since he took the job at Notre Dame is he's not Al Golden.
Correct.
That is still his biggest crime right now. Did he call a great game or put together a great game plan in most of our opinions? No. But again, there's a lot of football that has to be played out. Let's see what kind of adjustments are made going forward and what this defense looks like going forward.
A lot of football yet to be played. 11 games minimum left to be played.
Yes. All right, we've got time for maybe one more question. Are you looking back there? Is there any that jump out at you?
Ooh, let's see
wanna
here. I was not looking.
This one from Mark came in at the start of the show, and
Okay.
I saw this. In the next 5 years, ESPN and Fox will push Power 4 non-conference games a la carte, motivating Power 4 teams to schedule better games or better paydays. What are your thoughts on that?
So he's saying that they're going to pay. So, okay, I see what he's saying. So, in other words, you're going to get more money if you
Play a
schedule
big
tougher games.
non-conference, kind of like the games that we saw this past weekend, basically.
I think that's going to go against the contracts that all of these leagues have with the various, entities. I don't think they're going to be allowed to do that. So if this is a true false or a buy or sell, I'm going to sell it because I don't think that teams are going to be able to do that. The only team that can do that is the one that resides right down the street because they're independent and they can do whatever they want.
Well, I mean, like any of these teams can schedule what they want non-conference.
They could, yes, but doesn't the money go to the league or does it go to them specifically?
Right. It doesn't go directly to the school. That's your point. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're still, if you're in a conference, you're splitting all the money for these games.
Right. And so they're saying that the TV stations or the TV networks are going to start saying, well, you get to keep all of this money if you schedule these tough games ahead of time.
If you schedule a little bit tougher, and that's basically then a new TV contract that you're talking about. So I could see them trying to dangle that as inducement, but I mean, just look at what we had this weekend. We had a slate of some really good games, and like the SEC is trying to push, to keep that kind of thing happening. Like even Brian Kelly said, hey, we want to play Big Ten teams. Doesn't have to be Big Ten. There's a lot of marquee opponents that you can come up with out there. I think that TV would definitely love to see it. And I think that that's part of, like the Big Ten's whole push for the automatic qualifiers is, well, we'll play these marquee non-conference games, but we want guarantees that we're still going to get, that it's not going to hurt us. We're still going to get our teams in the playoff at the end. So that's going to be kind of the balancing act that they all have to make.
Well, and I'm glad that, the closer games, like the loser was not penalized majorly in the polls and, that kind of thing. Like Notre Dame's still a top 10 team.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't anticipating that when I woke up the next day, but I agree with it. You know what I mean? I think it was the right move to make. I mean, again, Notre Dame lost.
We got to get out of here
on the road.
I just realized we're behind.
So you, brother.
Sorry. All right. That's all right. We apologies to Cubs baseball that is coming up. Great questions from the chat today. We'll be back tomorrow. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. See you, Vince.
See you.